Rain hammered the cobblestones of Prague's old town as the clock tower struck 10. In his workshop on Nerudova Street, master clockmaker Henrik Vorel worked alone among his mechanical children, hundreds of timepieces marking moments with perfect precision. The storm outside seemed to make the clocks whisper more urgently, as if they sensed what the night would bring. Henrik's weathered hands moved delicately over the massive grandfather clock that dominated his workshop, a masterpiece of mahogany and brass that would soon become his tomb. At the stroke of midnight, Gustav Klein arrived for his usual late inspection, key trembling in his hand. The grandfather clock's deep chimes still echoed through the workshop as he pushed open the door. What he found defied both logic and time itself. Henrik Vorel lay crushed beneath the massive pendulum, his body twisted at an impossible angle. But the pocket watch in his vest, always kept perfectly synchronized, showed 10:47 p.m. Someone had reset the grandfather clock. But why? Gustav's scream pierced the night, joining the symphony of ticking that surrounded the dead clockmaker. Detective Karel Novak arrived as dawn broke grey and wet over Prague. The workshop had been sealed, but questions hung in the air like incense. How does a man who devoted his life to precision die at 10 p.m., only to be discovered when a clock chimes midnight? Novak studied the scene with the same attention Henrik once gave his mechanisms. The pendulum, weighing nearly 50 pounds, had somehow broken free from its mounting. Yet Henrik was no frail man. He had worked with such weights for decades. This was no accident. Marie Vorel sat rigid in her father's kitchen, her tea growing cold as Detective Novak questioned her. "He was leaving everything to that children's hospital," she said, her voice sharp with resentment. 40 years I kept house for him after mother died, and I get nothing." Her alibi was thin, alone at home during the storm, no witnesses. But Novak noticed something else. Her hands, usually pristine, bore small cuts. When pressed, she claimed they came from mending a broken vase. The detective made a note. In a clockmaker's daughter, such imprecision with delicate objects seemed unlikely. Gustav Klein's workshop apartment reeked of fear and cheap wine. His 15 years as Henrik's apprentice had earned him skill but not fortune. "I loved that old man like a father," he insisted, but his eyes betrayed him. Hidden beneath his workbench, Novak discovered correspondence with rival clockmakers. Gustav had been selling Henrik's revolutionary spring mechanisms for months. The betrayal ran deeper than money. Gustav had been planning to leave Prague entirely, using Henrik's stolen designs to establish himself in Vienna. But had he killed to keep his secret safe? Anton Dvorak received Detective Novak in his mansion's library, surrounded by countless timepieces that now felt like accusations. The grandfather clock had been his commission, a masterpiece worth more than most homes. But Dvorak's fortune had crumbled in the stock market crash, and he could no longer afford Henrik's final payment. "I went to see him that evening, yes," he admitted, his silver cane trembling in his grip. "But he was alive when I left at 9:30. We argued about payment terms." A torn piece of expensive fabric found on the workshop's doorframe matched Dvorak's overcoat perfectly. Elsa Hoffman met Detective Novak at their shared business office, her composure immaculate despite the tragedy. As Henrik's partner in the importing of rare clock components, she handled the financial side while he crafted. "I was at the opera until past 11, she said, producing her ticket stub. La Traviata. Quite moving. But something nagged at Novak. Her burgundy coat hung perfectly pressed, yet Prague had been soaked in rain. And when she spoke of Henrik, her grief seemed rehearsed like a performance. Still, her alibi appeared solid, and she seemed the least likely suspect of all. Back in the workshop, Detective Novak examined the grandfather clock with a craftsman's eye. The pendulum's mounting showed tool marks, fresh scratches that hadn't been there in Henrik's careful maintenance records. Someone had deliberately weakened the supports, but with surgical precision. It would hold for a time, then fail catastrophically. But here was the puzzle. The killer needed Henrik to be in exactly the right position when the pendulum fell. How could they guarantee that? Unless... Novak's eyes fell on the clock's winding mechanism, and understanding dawned like a terrible sunrise. Detective Novak assembled all the suspects in Henrik's workshop as rain continued its relentless assault on Prague. The grandfather clock loomed over them like a judge, its pendulum now still and silent. "One of you is a killer," Novak announced, his voice carrying the weight of certainty. Marie clutched her purse, her bandaged fingers visible. Gustav couldn't stop staring at the torn fabric evidence that pointed to Dvorak. Anton gripped his silver cane, sweat beading despite the cold. Only Elsa seemed calm, almost bored, checking her watch as if she had somewhere more important to be. That small gesture would be her undoing. The revelation came not through dramatics, but through arithmetic. Detective Novak had checked the Opera House records. La Traviata ended at 10:15 p.m. that night, not past 11 as Elsa claimed. She had time to reach the workshop by 10:30, commit murder, and reset the clock to midnight before leaving. But why reset it at all? "Because you needed an alibi that placed you elsewhere at midnight," Novak explained. "You didn't realize Henrik's pocket watch would betray the real time of death." Elsa's composure finally cracked. "He found the missing money. I couldn't let him destroy me over a few thousand koruna." Her confession echoed among the silent clocks, timepieces that had witnessed her crime and would now witness her judgment. As dawn broke properly over Prague, Detective Novak stood alone in the workshop where Henrik Vorel had spent his life, keeping perfect time. The grandfather clock had been repaired, its pendulum once again marking moments with mathematical precision. Henrik's final masterpiece would go to the children's hospital as planned, his daughter inheriting nothing but the lesson that some crimes echo through time. The rain had stopped, but its memory lingered on the windows like tears. In a workshop full of timepieces, justice had finally found its hour. The clockmaker's last creation would tick on, a monument not just to craftsmanship, but to the truth that time, like justice, always finds a way to reveal what was hidden in darkness.